Welcome to the only concealer video on YouTube that doesn't include Tarte Shape Tape. Hey guys, welcome back. Today we are going to be discussing my top 3 favorite concealers. I don't know why I've never done a video on my favorite concealers before, but we are here now and that is all that matters. This was originally going to be one of my top 5 videos, but when I sat down to list out the concealers that I wanted to include, these 3 that I'm going to be mentioning today came to my mind immediately. But then I was thinking of the last 2 concealers I wanted to include, and don't get me wrong, a ton of products definitely came to mind. There are definitely lots of other concealers that I really do enjoy using, but all of them had something about them, like I haven't used this in a really long time, or I really like this concealer but I haven't tried it enough to really consider it like a holy grail product, you know what I'm saying? So I decided to keep it simple and just do these 3. I know you guys do tend to appreciate that. Sometimes it can get overwhelming when someone is recommending so many different products. They all kind of tend to blur together. I just want to quickly mention before we get into it, I mostly use concealer for the under eye area and highlighting and brightening purposes, but there isn't going to be a concealer that's like this is the best for covering acne or anything like that. As always, all of the products in today's video will be linked in the description bar, and I will also link the video that I've done on how to remove the stopper from concealer packaging so you can get out every last little bit of concealer. Definitely very relevant to this video, and I know a lot of people don't know how to do that, so you guys definitely need to check that out. But let's get started. So coming in at number 1, this is my holy grail concealer and definitely the concealer I have been using the longest by far, and that is the NARS Radiant Creamy Concealer. I have been using this since I was 18, so like a solid 5 years now, and I've just been madly in love with it ever since it came out. I use the shade Chantilly, which is their lightest shade, when I'm at my fairest, which is pretty much my current skin tone. It gives me a really beautiful highlighted brightening effect under the eyes. The next 2 shades up are actually like a little bit too pink for me, so this is honestly my best option. I don't really have a good shade match in this concealer when I do get a little bit more of a tan, but they do have 22 shades to choose from. They have a really great range. The main reason I love this is for the coverage. It is super full coverage without feeling super heavy or thick, and it just gives the most beautiful like lifted appearance to the eyes. It makes you look so awake. My eyes tend to look a little bit sunken sometimes because I have these natural just kind of marks here, and they do appear even worse when I am tired. I'm pretty tired right now, I'm not going to lie, so they're definitely looking a little bit more pronounced, but I get a lot of questions from you guys who have a similar issue, how to minimize them as best as possible, and the number 1 thing I recommend is just getting a super brightening full coverage concealer like this. Something that's really just going to even out the skin tone in that area perfectly, because that will kind of minimize the shadows that these marks kind of cast that make your eyes look sunken and can kind of accentuate your dark circles, which I have pretty minimal dark circles, but this kind of mark here definitely makes it look worse when I don't have makeup on, and they're definitely a lot more noticeable. I'm not actually wearing this particular concealer today, but just in general, I bring my concealer down past these lines in that kind of standard triangle formation that everybody does, and that really helps for the most part. I also love that this concealer gives your skin the perfect amount of hydration without being oily. It keeps your eye area from looking crusty or cakey, but it is not going to budge throughout the entire day. It really lasts. I think a lot of people are kind of nervous with this concealer because it does have radiant and creamy in the name. I think some people will expect it to be like super glowy and dewy looking, or like really emollient and that it'll slide around, but it really sets very well. My second concealer that I'm going to be talking about is more for the days when I want a slightly more natural look. Like I said, the NARS concealer is very full coverage, so I tend to reserve it for days when I'm getting a little bit more glam, you know what I mean? But this is the Too Faced Born This Way concealer. I've been using this concealer since it came out. I've always really liked it, but it's become my go-to everyday concealer for the past few months, and it's actually what I am wearing today. This concealer has a more medium buildable coverage. It is very hydrating, definitely more hydrating than the NARS Radiant Creamy Concealer, but it is oil-free. I currently have the shade Light in this concealer, and the shade is a good match for me. It's definitely good for more natural makeup days. If I wanted a more highlighted effect under my eyes, I could definitely stand to go a couple shades lighter with this, just if you are a similar skin tone to me and you are wondering, trying to figuring out your shade and you want to go a bit lighter. I actually love this concealer for breakouts and acne scarring. You guys know when you have a breakout, especially when it's just starting to heal, the area can get very crusty and flaky looking. This hydrates the area so well and minimizes flakiness, but at the same time, because it has such a natural skin-like finish, it's not going to draw any attention to uneven texture and flakiness like a super dewy hydrating concealer would. One thing I will say is that this concealer is formulated with coconut water. Some people do react to coconut or coconut derived ingredients in their products, and they can break out from it. I personally don't have that issue at all, but it's just something to be aware of if you aren't sure how your skin reacts to coconut. If you've tried like the Too Faced Born This Way foundation or any of the Too Faced hangover products and your skin has been fine, then you're probably okay because those also contain coconut water. But just a little heads up, not everyone mentions that, and coconut is bad news for some people's skin. Thankfully, I'm not one of those people. I do love this concealer in the eye area as well, but I've actually been using this concealer a lot recently on days when I'm not going to be wearing any makeup, but I just want to add a little bit of concealer on my more prominent acne scarring. I don't know about you guys, but in the past when I've tried to just conceal like one breakout or blemish, it just looks so obvious. Like, it's so clear that I've just slapped concealer on that one spot because it's like, oh, the rest of my skin is uneven, but this one spot is just perfect and even for some reason. Like, it's just so unnatural looking, but that does not happen with this concealer, and that is part of why I love it so much. It just blends into your skin so flawlessly, and it's completely undetectable, and I don't have to set it when I'm using it on blemishes, and it will last all day. Once again, I know I just spoke mostly about this concealer for blemishes and breakouts, but it is really lovely under the eyes. It's so creamy and so natural looking. Once again, it's what I have on today. My third and final favorite concealer that I'm going to be talking about in today's video is from the drugstore. It is the NYX HD Concealer. This is definitely my favorite affordable concealer. I have repurchased this countless times. I've gone through so many tubes, and I typically use the shade Porcelain, but I've tried 2 or 3 other shades, I think, just depending on how tan I am and everything like that. It's just the best concealer I've found at the drugstore, hands down. It's buildable, but you can really build this up to a very, very full coverage. Not cakey though, of course, and it does have more of a demi-matte finish, so one you can definitely use on your eye area as well as breakouts. I wouldn't really call this a dupe for the NARS Radiant Creamy Concealer, but it's probably the closest thing I've found at a more affordable price point. The one thing I find with this is it's not really hydrating at all, in my opinion. It doesn't make the eye area look bad, but like with the NARS concealer and the Too Faced concealer, I definitely notice more of these skincare benefits. They are higher end products. They do tend to have slightly better ingredients. One thing I do think is important to mention is that I do always set my under eye concealer with a powder. I haven't found a concealer that doesn't crease on me at least a little bit. I have expression lines under my eyes, like right under my lash lines, and I've always had them, and product just likes to settle in those areas. So I always powder pretty much immediately to try and prevent that from happening, but I do find that this concealer does tend to crease a little bit more than others. So if you're not someone who likes to set your eye area, I wouldn't recommend trying this, to be 100% honest, but if you set your eye area, you're gonna be fine. I've mentioned this in the past, but my one con with this concealer is that you don't get much product. It only contains about 3 grams of concealer. Most concealers tend to be around like 7 grams, 7 mils, whatever. So I definitely burned through a tube of the NYX HD concealer a lot faster than I do with other concealers, but it is inexpensive, so it doesn't really bug me that much. It's something I'm willing to deal with because I do really like the product. I used this concealer pretty much for an entire year straight. I didn't really use any other ones. I do really, really enjoy it. And those are my top 3 favorite concealers. For those of you who might be curious, if I had made this a top 5, I probably would have made number 4 the YSL Touche Eclat Radiant Touch, and number 5 Urban Decay Naked Skin. I'll also link those down below if you're curious. And also, regarding my comment about Tarte Shape Tape at the very beginning of the video, I have nothing against Tarte Shape Tape, it's just not one of my favorites. But I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Please give it a thumbs up if you did. Don't forget to check out the description box, because like I said, everything will be linked down below. Go follow me on social media. I'm at SariReanna on Twitter and Instagram, and hit that subscribe button down below if you're new to my channel. But thank you guys so much for spending this time with me today. I really appreciate it, and I will talk to you guys in the next one. Bye guys.